welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, your go-to sports podcast featuring great content, conversation, and your occasional disagreement. Stick around to interact and ask questions. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports, located on the White Horse Pike in Hamilton, New Jersey. Showcase Sports for the elite player. Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime.
All right, great start. Let me just, there we go. All right, what is up, everyone? We are back finally after about, I want to say 3 months away. Actually, I think last I checked the document, it said I last edited January 19th, so it would be around 3 months. We are back. Sweet Tea Show here on the Sports Box Network. We've been waiting a few months to finally have enough content to talk about for a full-length show. And Garth, what do you know? The streak continues. Today we're going to do a podcast, massive breaking news about the sport we cover. Comes out on the exact same day. But we'll get to that in a little bit. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Oh, fired up as always, man. It may be spring, but college football getting closer and closer. Obviously, spring ball, we underwent spring ball, had the spring games for all the major colleges. And now kind of in that transfer portal area, the lead up to the start of the actual season. So a lot to be excited for in college football at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we already got a shit ton of comments coming in. Mikey Bradley, which I know it's him because I got the group up and the Outside the Box group up saying, "Ayo, what's up, Mikey? How are you doing tonight, my friend?" Daniel Bakley saying, "Howdy, old boys." What's up, Daniel? How you doing tonight?
Everybody D-Bake.
And of course, it wouldn't be a show without the good old Ric Flair. Woo! Because we are fired up that we are back. And Andre Vault says, "Welcome back, guys." Thank you very much, Andre. It is good to be back. We got a lot to talk about in this one, and it'll still probably be a little bit of a shorter show in this one. But before we do that, if you guys are watching and not yet, make sure to leave a like on the show because it does help spread our show through the Facebook algorithm. Now, Garth, let's get right into it here. We got, a couple segments, but, the main thing, like I said, we're back. It's been, since January. I do just want to remind you real quick, Garth, though, on this little cup I got here, back-to-back champions. Just wanted to point that out, and then there's the score for you.
Himself.
Yeah, it's
all joking and trolling aside. That's actually a pretty darn cool cup, Noah.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, my dad got me that for my birthday, which is just around a month ago. So yeah, that was pretty sick. Also got this new hat. Haven't worn this because I just recently got it. It's a nice black national championships hat that I can use in addition to my my red one, which is right there. So got a little bit of variety now with the Georgia merch. But let's get right into it, Garth. We're going to start out with, one of our non-sports related segments because you still work with absolute buffoons, it seems like, even though the GOAT, Sean Dawkins, has left. You have the stinky guy that bathes like once a month, it seems like. You got some crazy Hispanic ladies or whatever. What story of mischief or stupidity, what have you, do you have from your dealership this week for us?
Oh, God, here we go, guys. It feels like it's been forever. Unfortunately, R.I.P. to Sean the Goat Dawkins. No, he did not die. He just sadly does not work for us anymore. Have seen him recently. He's doing good for everybody who cares to know. But yeah, let's see here. I got a good one. I mean, it might be a little bit more, not really graphic, I guess, but grotesque, if you will, than usual. But basically, Noah alluded to the big stinky guy. He goes by the nickname of Senor Cockadoodle.
Oh my
God. He's been nicknamed, as well as just the big stink. Not once, but twice within the past few weeks. He has been in the bathroom. He has blown the bathroom to smithereens. And then a witness has witnessed him just full up sprint out of the bathroom stall. No flushing of the toilet, no washing of the hands. Right back into his work area. And the one time, the crazy old Cuban guy, who is like a dinosaur at this point, came right into the parts department and started screaming, yelling at the guy, telling him, "You're disgusting, gross hog, wash your hands, what's wrong with you," type spiel. So that's at least off the top of my head a good one I got for you guys. And then real quick, now just to follow it up super quickly here, an old segment called the Sean of the Week.
Yes.
Came across this post today, actually, just in time for the show. If you guys can't see there, that is kind of a makeshift stand, probably on the side of the road or wherever, or farmer's market, something. A bunch of jerseys hanging up there. If you can't tell from the colors, that would be Florida State. And a guy happened to drive by it, snag a picture, and he wanted to inform the FSU fans that I don't know who out there needs to hear this, but Deion did not even wear the number 21 in college. So basically, this guy probably made or bought some cheap old jerseys of primetime Deion Sanders, because that would be a popular jersey to buy and probably would sell well, and hung them up for sale and put the completely wrong number on them. So that's my Sean of the Week story for everybody.
Yeah, good old FSU fans. He wore number 2 in college, for anyone that did not know. But yeah, I got a good one, Garth. Actually, I don't have a picture of it, but it was kind of a similar post from a Facebook group I saw today. What a surprise! It was from an Alabama fan, because why would it not be? But now get this, Garth, and I'm not even saying this to brag, although it is nice to mention. Georgia, back-to-back champions, right? So imagine my surprise when I go into a Facebook, well, it wasn't a group I was in, but someone sent me a screenshot of it, of an Alabama fan saying, and I quote, this was not from, a year ago, this was from today, Georgia are one-hit wonders when they have won back-to-back titles. Tell me how that works, Garth. Tell me how that works, man.
Hey, he's right up there with that Tennessee Volunteer fan that approached you while, in the lunchroom or cafeteria, rather, or between classes or whatever.
Yeah, I was in a hallway waiting for my buddy to get out of class, and this guy in a Vols shirt comes up and it's just like, "Go Vols!" And I'm wearing like 2-time national championship shirt and whatnot, and I'm just like, "Go Dogs!" And then he disappears into his classroom. I never hear from him again.
Just like the Tennessee offense in that game disappeared into the mist.
Yeah. Other than that garbage time touchdown, they scored like 5 minutes left in the game. Danny, in response to your story about the stinky guy, says, "What the fuck, lol." Yeah, it's just. And doesn't he like wears the same shirt? So like by the end of the week, his like pure white shirt is like a shitty brown color.
Starts the week off strongly, but unfortunately by the end, it looks like he basically was mopping the floors with himself in the shirt.
Our good buddies over at Blue Truth, Brian Attard's Ranger Show, says, "Long-time listener, first-time caller. Chris Kreider has 2 more goals than the entire Devils team. Is that good?" Well, I'll tell you what, Garth, the fact we both picked the Rangers, looking pretty good right now because they're up 2-0. Going back to Madison Square Garden as well. Our good buddy, longtime fan, one of our biggest fans, John Suggs, saying, "Garth, are you worried about the Lightning? Looked nasty last night."
Did I enjoy the game? Absolutely not. Am I exactly like worried, super nervous about how the series is going to go? No, not exactly, because if you remember in game 1, just 2 nights before game 2, we basically did the exact same thing to them. And then also to rewind to last postseason, there was a lot of games. Actually, they beat us 5-0 game 1, round 1 last year. I believe the Panthers in the second round had a game where they beat us like 5-2 or 6-3, something like that. The Rangers looked like they were going to sweep us in 4 games after game 1 and 2 in that series. And then even Colorado Avalanche, albeit we did not win that series, but we did come pretty darn close. They had that game where they beat us something like 7-0. So, was it fun to watch, John? Absolutely not. I did not exactly enjoy myself last night, but am I worried that this is just they're going to run away with this series now? Absolutely not. And like I actually mentioned to Noah earlier, not to get off on a tangent here, but Andre Vasilevsky tends to have really, really good, just like stonewall type goalie games directly after taking a whomping like this. So I expect a good game out of him tomorrow night.
Yeah, there was some ridiculous stat before last year, because I think he had 2 straight losses to the Rangers because they went down 2-0. But before that, like his record after a loss was like he had won like 10 or 11 straight games. or something ridiculous like that. So I wouldn't be worried. I mean, they did take back home ice advantage from the Maple Leafs by winning game 1. So we'll see how the rest of that series goes. Jennifer Kate coming in saying, "How's it going, guys? What's up, Jen? How you doing? We're doing good.
What's up,
Lots
Jen?
of we're talking about hockey, but this is a college football show. But you know what? We'll get to in a second." John says, "Do you think Hurricanes are in trouble with Tara Vinen out with a broken hand?" I don't think they're in trouble in their first series because they got that overtime winning game 2 to go up 2-0 on the Islanders. Garth and I both picked the Hurricanes to beat the Islanders. I think past that, and even with Tara Vinen, I was never really sold on the Hurricanes. I would pick the Rangers to beat them in a series probably. I definitely wouldn't expect them to beat a team like a Boston. So, it doesn't really massively change my expectations for them, but obviously it doesn't help. So,
yeah, I would agree there.
All right, now, enough hockey talk. We have another show specifically for hockey if you want to watch that. We have college football stuff to talk about. And Garth, like I said, major breaking news today. The NCAA announcing multiple rule changes. There's a few we'll get into, but there's one major one that we're mainly going to focus on, which is the fact that they basically removed the clock stoppage after first downs. They've changed it to where the clock will now run after first downs, as long as it's not within the last 2 minutes, so of either half. Other than that, it's going to be exactly like the NFL, pretty much running clock after first down. It's no longer going to stop after a first down. And I got a quote here from Steve Shaw, who is the NCAA Secretary, Rules Editor, and Officials Coordinator, who says, and I quote, "This is important." He's talking about the difference in between the rules that still exist. "This is important because of the beauty of the differences in our game. It allows a team late in a game, even without timeouts, to have a chance to advance the ball and come back and that sort of thing." So basically, he's saying that even though the rule is more similar to the NFL rule, there still is a difference. So it makes the game more unique and whatnot. So that's why they're going to let it still stop in the last 2 minutes. Other rules that were approved, not as major, but teams, it says times, but it should be teams, are now prohibited from calling consecutive team timeouts, and penalties at the end of the first and third that carry over to the next quarter, will now carry over to the next quarter instead of a quarter being extended by a play. Garth, start with you on this one. What is your thought with this rule change? Because the logic is they want to shorten games. They want to decrease the amounts of play. I saw something, I think from a quote from Shaw. He was like, there's 180 average plays in the game. When you compare it to the NFL, it's like 140, 150. They want to get close to that mark. They want to cut down the games by around 8 or 9 minutes a game. But I don't know what you're thinking, but when I first saw this, I was like, okay, I understand wanting to shorten the length of the game takes, but the way I would do that, all those stupid-ass media timeouts, get rid of some of them. I don't really think this is a rule that needed to be changed. What were your thoughts when you saw this?
Yeah, I was taken back a little bit, kind of surprised because, like you said, no, it isn't exactly a rule that was drastically needed to be changed. It wasn't anything monumental like when they decided to try to protect players more in pass targeting enforcements, or even like this last season where they added, and it's weird because I talk about this a little bit from time to time. We didn't really see it in effect, but they did add that rule last postseason, where basically if they felt that a team was faking an injury to kind of get like a rest period for the defense, try and help them out to get a stop, then that would be a penalty enforced. I think it ended up being that it was enforced after games as like a fine or something. So it really wasn't anything that was going to impact the course of a game. But, that's stuff where you could sit down and go, okay, I completely understand this. I can get behind it. Am I exactly mad with it? No, not really, because I do understand kind of the goal that they're trying to accomplish with it. But at the same time, I don't think it was absolutely needed. Like, this is a groundbreaking rule change. It's going to make the sport way, way better, more enjoyable to watch. I'm just glad that they did keep the clock stoppage for the last 2 minutes, because I think that's a really, really huge with teams trying to kind of mount last-minute comebacks, or at least tie the game up to try and force an overtime or something like that. Like you said, no, I think they probably could have went the route of maybe not even limiting media timeouts, but at least shortening them, because I know it's for marketing, it's for making money. I totally understand that, guys, but they absolutely bombard us with TV timeouts and useless commercials that we ultimately don't really need to see. It's not anything that's changing our lives by any means, but yeah, I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I get the goal that they're trying to accomplish, and we saw it with baseball with the pitch clock. It's like the society that we're in, everything wants to be as fast as possible. People don't have the attention spans and patience that they once had. So I get it. They're trying to speed the game up, but at the same time, it's like, did we really need to do this? No, not really.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you. Look, I think it's a little unnecessary, but like you said, it's not one of those rule changes that's like drastically going to affect my enjoyment of the game. Like, I'm still going to watch all the games that we have. We're still going to, be as passionate about it as we always had. It's just going to be a rule that I think teams are going to have to get used to. And, I think some effects it'll have, like we said, I think it'll shorten the game time a bit. It'll shorten the amount of plays. I think there will be first of all, I mean, obviously there will be longer drives because of this. There will probably be less points scored overall because, less plays, more time-consuming drives, whatnot. But, getting back to the rule changes here, Garth, I got obviously that's the most important one. But I got a full list here. So like I said, no 2 consecutive timeouts. If you try to do that, you get a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. Like I said, penalties committed on the last play of the first or thirds. Quarters now carry over to the next quarter with the ball at the new spot. We just went over the game clock one. When there is not a replay official in the booth, on-field officials will now have optional replay available in the event of a coach's challenge. Sounds good to me. No complaints with that. Always should have more angles to look at when reviewing a play. And establishing guidelines for second-half warm-up activities, including requiring teams to wait until the field is made available to return and having designated areas of the field to warm up. Blah, blah, blah. And then when teams are on the field, drones are not allowed over the playing surface or the team area. A little bit of a strange one there, but those are all the rule changes that we at least know about so far. One more quote from Shaw here. This is about reducing game time and the number of plays. He says, "We've got to limit to see if it really does that or it's more or less. It's a minimal change and I think a good change direction for the game." And then he goes on to say, average number of plays in Division I is around 178, 179 plays per game. He compares that to the NFL, and he says, averaging about 150. They want to get close to that mark. I think this is Mikey. I don't have the grip up anymore. It says, "The hell happened to your mustache? I shaved last Thursday, buddy." But I will say the beard's already coming in nicely again. It's only been a week, and it's already clearly evident again. So, but yeah, he says it's something we need to look at. It's a conservative step, and we'll see what basically happens pretty much. So we will see what happens. Like I said, I think it's kind of an unnecessary change, but, I've seen people blowing up about this on Twitter and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it wouldn't have been something I would have had at the top of my docket list to change, but it's not something I'm going to be throwing, a tantrum over. It's kind of like how I feel about the game clock. People are talking about that like the game clock just went out and murdered their 3 children and killed 20 other people. It's really not that big a deal at the end of the day. And I think 2 or 3 months in the college season, I think people will just have already gotten used to it by now. Pretty much that's my thoughts on it. Facebook user says Mikey B said that. That's what I thought, but yeah, I don't know what it is. When we shared the show to the Outside the Box group, for some reason it doesn't show your name. If you watch it through the normal Sports Box page, though, it does show your name. Don't know why that is, but it is what it is. Garth, next segment. Now, this is what I'm most excited to talk about, and the reason we were kind of scheduling the show is because we got spring games coming up. UJ's was last week. There's a ton of them kicking off. Has Florida done theirs yet?
Yes, they did. Not this week, but the week before. They did it on Thursday night.
Gotcha. So I guess before we get into the specific examples of other teams looking out for, what were your thoughts because I assume you watched the spring game. Any standouts to you, things you were kind of keeping an eye on, main takeaways from what you saw?
Yeah, so obviously it's really hard to judge how much of it's going to translate over to the actual season, come the fall and against other opponents instead of just your own teammates. But one thing that I was really, really excited for, and one thing as a Florida fan that I've been absolutely begging and pleading to happen, because it feels like it's been forever now since we've had a defense that even is like just average run of the mill. I mean, we've been like 100 plus ranked in the nation for overall defense for 3 or 4 years in a row now. Todd Grantham came in originally. He had one really good year, but I think that was kind of mostly the fact that there was still a lot of talent and experience on that side of the ball. They brought in a couple of really, really good transfer players like Jonathan Grenard, who's been killing it for the Houston Texans early on in his NFL career, versus him actually being a good defensive coordinator. But nonetheless, long story short, the defense actually looked tremendously better. Young, inexperienced, but very passionate, emotional defensive coordinator in Armstrong, only 29 years old, going on 30, coming over from Alabama as their linebacker coach, and rumoredly who Nick Saban was grooming to become their next defensive coordinator. We kind of lured him out of Alabama. Billy Napier hired him to replace Patrick Toney as a defensive coordinator, and I've loved everything I've seen out of the young guy so far. Just one of those guys who loves the game. You can tell he's so passionate on the sidelines, always trying to coach guys up, get them to work and push harder. So really excited by the defense. No, it looked way better. Defensive line is a lot deeper, a lot more talented. Defensive backs, had their moments here and there where I kind of was like, what the hell are you guys doing? You should know how to go through your assignments by now. But overall, really impressed with the defense. Graham Mertz, he didn't go out and light the world on fire or anything, but he actually was very good. He took care of the ball, no turnovers. He had like 60% completion, threw for like 200 yards, I think, somewhere right in there, like 165, 170, something like that. Obviously, we know what we have in Trevor Etienne and Montreal Johnson. They looked absolutely phenomenal, should have a monster season. And probably the weakest link, and a lot of people are blaming it on injury, and I hope they're right, because we did lose two really key starters to the NFL draft, and Richard Garage and Osiris Torrance, who's projected a first-round pick. Offensive line did not look great. They definitely had a lot of moments where they got beat and let pass rushers in kind of easily. So that's really the one negative. And then the one like super positive thing that made me excited, like I said, was how well the defense looked. So we'll see how that translates to the fall. Hopefully it's a lot better now, because I'm pretty fed up of bad defenses, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, I would be too. I mean, Todd Grantham, what he was doing the past few years was absolutely terrible. And then they fired him, and, interim guy came in, and it was somehow even worse. I mean, it was just like terrible. Yeah, interesting to hear that, Garth. I am interested to see what Graham Mertz does this season, because, the whole Rashada thing, they don't have him anymore, but they still have Lagway, I think is his name. So, Mertz needs to, do a good job, because he has definitely some, strong competition over his shoulder. But moving on to the Georgia game, I didn't watch the whole thing because I was actually hunting that day, but I did see a good bit of it. I watched most of the second half. The red versus black team, and the red team ended up winning it 31-26. Main takeaways for me, guys that really stood out. I'll start at quarterback, because that's the position that has been most debated. I was really impressed by Carson Beck. And, we mentioned him in the past, Garth. I know when my uncle was on, he mentioned him a lot, saying he'll probably be the next starter. And I agree. He's the guy that has the most in-game experience. He's looked solid when he's come in. He played against TCU in the championship game. I believe he played against Oregon in the season opener last year. And, he came in, and granted, he's playing against a team that was getting beat down both times, but looked pretty good, made some good passes when he was in there. He was very accurate on the day. So I was very impressed with him. Another guy, Garth, receiver Dominic Lovett, transfer guy we got in from Missouri, was really impressed with him. I thought the defense was pretty solid. There were a couple of interceptions in this game. They looked pretty raring to go. But, someone I want to focus on that didn't quite have as good a game, Brock Vandegrift. Now, he's a very talented prospect. He hasn't gotten a chance to play. And he came in and, looked a little shaky. He had moments here where, he showed off his talent, scored a couple of touchdowns, but, he threw an interception. looked a bit inconsistent. I honestly thought Gunnar Stockton showed more to me in that game than Vandegrift did. I thought Vandegrift was very hit or miss in that game. And then, of course, right after the game, there's posts coming out, oh, Vandegrift is uncertain about his future at UGA, blah, blah, blah. This is the thing I hate about these prospects, Garth. They commit to these teams, right, that already have 2 or 3, 5, 4 or 5 star prospects at their position that, have an edge experience-wise on them. And then when they don't play them, they're like, why am I not playing? I need to transfer. It's like, come on, man. It's like Bear Alexander.
He wants to transfer. How about that Bear guy? I keep hearing about him.
This is how stupid this guy is. He transfers to a team that's loaded with experience, 4 or 5 stars in the line. He was a freshman last year. He even came in the championship game, played well. He got some playing time. He'd get more playing time this year, obviously, with, guys leaving, especially Jalen Carter. But, I'm hearing in camp, there's guys like Zion Logue or Nazir Stackhouse are outworking them or whatnot. And what do you know? Some of these spoiled young prospects, as soon as someone starts outworking them, sorry, I'm hitting the transfer portal. I don't like to compete for my job. It's just stupid. But, look, I've always said this. UGA will be fine. They're bigger than one player. I mean, we lost Jermaine Burton last year, who was one of our leading receivers the year before, went to Alabama. We won another title, and I didn't hear anything about Jermaine Burton most of the season. So, but yeah, overall, really impressed with the spring game. Like you said, Garth, doesn't really mean much in context because it's basically a glorified practice / scrimmage, but it is fun to watch, get us, a little excited for college football coming because it's only 4 months away now. It's already been 3 months since the championship game. Mikey says, think I'm good now for the Noah the hell happened to your mustache comment. Yep, you're good. I can see your name right there, Mikey. But moving on, we're going to kind of focus on other teams. Maybe not so much watching spring games or whatnot, but, our thoughts on, teams that we want to keep an eye on. We're going to do one team from each Power 5 conference. We'll try to do different teams. So we'll start with the ACC on this one, Garth. Any particular team you're looking at, any particular player that you want to keep an eye on for this season coming up?
Oh, yeah. This one might have been the easiest one, honestly. I mean, there's a lot of good choices for teams as well as players. But, the first guy who jumped into my mind immediately, a guy who, despite the school he goes to, I'm a very, very big fan of, like his game, Drake May, UNC.
Yeah.
The guy, personally, if I'm him, trying to get inside of his mental process headed into this year, I am fired up beyond belief to just go out and go on an absolute tear because we talked a lot about on here. He got absolutely robbed of a Heisman finalist appearance. Like we said, you could definitely make the case that he didn't deserve to win it, but he definitely deserved to be a Heisman finalist.
Agreed.
But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, and also too, I believe he should be he's either a redshirt sophomore or redshirt junior this season.
I think he's a sophomore.
Redshirt sophomore, yeah. So he will be eligible for the NFL draft should he elect to go. So also too, his draft stock, he can elevate it even further, or, if he kind of has a down year, all of a sudden he might not be getting the hype and the talk that he was getting just this past season. So, I don't know how good that team's going to be as a whole, Noah, especially because I think, teams obviously like Clemson are going to be really good again. Even Florida State, they've got a lot of guys coming back. That team was really good this past season, so they could potentially compete in that conference and make things a little bit harder for other teams. But definitely as far as just a solo individual player, Drake May, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good choice. Luckily, you didn't steal mine. I thought you might, but you did not. I'm actually looking at Clemson with DJ transferring to Oregon State. I want to keep an eye on Cade Klubnik because he came in the ACC championship game against those UNC Tar Heels. And he had a good game. I think, I don't remember his exact stat line, but he was very accurate. He had probably almost 300 yards, a couple touchdown passes in there. Barely played last year because he's behind DJ. But from what I've seen, obviously I'm no Clemson fan, but from what I've heard from guys that are Clemson fans that do know a good bit about this guy, very talented guy. So I think if he gets a chance this year, look, Clemson is a tough team, right? But, I think the consensus is they're still a very good team. It's just that their quarterback play has been absolutely atrocious the past years. I mean, going from Trevor Lawrence to DJ Ukulele, it's just the biggest fall off you could possibly have, pretty much. DJ's now gone, so they're going to get a shot to get hopefully Klubnik in there, see what he can do. I mean, Clemson, is still a good team. They won the ACC last year after missing it the year before, but they've fallen a little bit, right, from that, consistent playoff contender, national title contender status that we usually associate them with. Will Klubnik be the guy to get them, back in the right direction, heading towards that status again? I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see. So that's what I'm most focused on.
So Noah, real quick before we move on to the Big Ten here,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to highlight a couple of things with how cool this ACC conference as a whole is. For one, what feels like in forever. So obviously, I touched on it real quick. FSU, Jordan Travis returning, a lot of that team returning. Mike Norville now in like his 4th or 5th season, so he's got his system in place. Going to be really, really interesting to see what they do. Mario down there in Miami, 2nd season, coming off an absolute dumpster fire of a year. Can they bounce back, or is that dumpster fire going to continue to burn? Obviously, I talked about UNC. You talked about Clemson. NC State, how are they going to be with the departure of Devin Leary? Syracuse looked really, really good last year. Can they kind of pick up where they fell off? And then obviously teams like Pitt and Wake, who have been really good the past couple of seasons, can they keep that up, or are they going to kind of fall off? Because obviously Sam Hartman went over to Notre Dame. So it'll be really, really interesting to see this conference as a whole, Noah, this season coming up.
Yeah, I agree. It's becoming a far more interesting conference than it has been, for most recent years, where it was the all Clemson conference. I'll even throw another team in there, Garth, you didn't mention. How about Duke winning 9 games last year with Mike Elko?
True as well. They're starting to show they might just be a football program after all.
Yeah, Mike Elko did a great job last year. Tom Scavetta coming in saying, "What's up, guys? Friday Night Lights is back. What's up, buddy?"
What's up, Tom?
We are absolutely fired up to be back, man. Moving on to the Big Ten. I'll go first on this one. We'll kind of alternate, I guess, so Garth doesn't steal any of my picks or doesn't steal too many. I'm keeping an eye on Ohio State, and specifically with the departure of C.J. Stroud, the NFL draft, I'm keeping an eye on the guy who I'm looking at the depth chart here is currently penciled in as their starter for next season, Kyle McCord. Now, I've heard a bit about this guy. He played a little bit last year. He was Stroud's backup. Another guy, once again, kind of like Klubnik, seems like he, really top level prospect that has just kind of sat on the bench for a few years. Credit to him, he didn't transfer. It says he's a junior here on the depth chart. So he's been there quite a while, but, he's still got guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. on the team. Really liked what Emeka Egbuka did last year as well, filling in after Smith and Jigba got injured. Cade Stover, redshirt senior tight end, really like him. They still have Mine Williams and Travion Henderson, which is just nuts. It feels like those 2 running backs have been there for about 10 years at this point. So, Ohio State's a weird one. I mean, obviously they almost beat Georgia in what was basically the de facto national championship game. Michigan's still there. So it's not, like years past where Ohio State would just expect them kind of roll through the conference. I think it's going to be another close 2-horse race between those 2 teams again. But if they do want to stay in that race, Kyle McCord is going to have to come in, step up to where their quarterback production is either similar or it doesn't, take too much of a hit. So that's what I would focus on.
Yeah, so it's a good thing you pulled the old switcheroo there, Noah, because you did actually steal my number 1 choice. But don't worry, because I had a few up my sleeve just in case. So honestly, it's a little bit tough because I feel like they're just like the ACC. There's a lot of good preseason kind of storylines, players to watch, coaches to watch headed into this year. And I think I will lean towards the side of Wisconsin and Luke Fickell just slightly over Michigan, and Corum returning. Harbaugh looking to get over the hump and actually finally win a CFP a game and not get blown out, or have to try and have some late game heroics to come back and advance. But the reason why with Wisconsin, Noah, because this is another team that we talked a lot about. We feel like they've had really, really good running backs over the past 5, 6, 7 years. They've had really good defense. Even in the bad years, that crowd still shows up. Good atmosphere there. One of the coolest traditions in college football in the jump around. Luke Fickell comes in, first-year head coach there at Wisconsin, but We know all too well what he's able to accomplish at Cincinnati. Obviously making the college football playoffs there. Kind of, a defensive-minded coach. So I'm really, really interested to see how that works out because, take nothing away, he's a great coach. Really, really big fan of him. Defense really wasn't the issue there in Wisconsin. It was the fact that they couldn't get consistent, really good quarterback play. They couldn't establish a passing game in a college football, atmosphere that's really, really pass heavy now. We still have these really good running backs across the nation, but passing is the name of the game, just like the NFL. I have no doubt he's going to be able to get things going defensively, Noah, and probably even improve a really, really good defense because he's just that type of defensive-minded coach. Is he going to be able to get the offense going for once? Because that is really what it's going to take to make them competitive in the Big Ten and potentially even make a CFP appearance. And will he have to bring in like a top-tier offensive coordinator eventually? But really just more so, what is this first season going to look like under him? And are they going to kind of have like a very slow rebuilding year where they're, maybe just like slightly over 500, or is he going to come in and completely overachieve? And everybody's talking about, wow, Wisconsin year one, Luke Fickell, is really, really killing it. They're playing above expectations. They're very competitive. They're in the mix for a Big Ten championship appearance, so I'm really, really interested to see how that pans out for this Wisconsin Badgers football team.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's a weird one, right? I mean, there's some interesting things here. So at quarterback, the main guy I'm seeing here, Tanner Mordecai, graduate student, former SMU quarterback, been lighting it up the past years.
Gunslinger, Noah.
Absolutely. But I'm looking at their personnel here, Garth, real quick. So no Jim Leonard at defense, but like you said, Fickell's a defensive guy, so that helps. But I'm looking at their OC, Phil Longo. This is a guy that wants to run the air raid. He was UNC's OC last season, and he was there for a few years. And before that, he was at Ole Miss. Teams that like to sling the ball around. But like you said, it's not really what we've always associated with Wisconsin. We associate them with, good running game behind a strong offensive line and good defense. It seems like, like you said, with the gunslinger at quarterback, they want to take that offense in a completely different direction. So that'll be interesting to see. I am very excited to see what Luke Fickell does because it's a good opportunity for me. It's a massive program and it's a new challenge because, past few years, he helped build Cincy up, but, they kind of became that favorite where they were just pretty much blitzing through the conference at that point. But going to a team like Wisconsin, they're clearly not the best team in the conference. So he's going to have to help build those guys up. And I'm interested to see if he is up to the challenge. And I think he will be because I think he's a very good head coach. Tom saying draft prep is in full swing, fellas. Yeah, the draft is coming up next Thursday. We're going to mention that in a little bit. Moving on to the Big Ten, Garth, I'll let you start with this one.
Okay, so Big 12, Noah, I think quite frankly, there's really two teams to watch here that I could choose between, two teams that I would think automatically pop into most people's heads. I'm going to go against what actually is my first pick because I am more interested to hear your thoughts on it. Should you pick it? I'm going to go with the Oklahoma Sooners and Venables, the longtime DC for Clemson under Dabo Sweeney that came over there last offseason. Honestly, and I don't hold anything against him because there was a lot of roster turnover first season as a head coach there in Oklahoma. But quite frankly, it was a really bad year there for them in Norman. That's a team who maybe doesn't expect national championships on a regular basis, but at least expects to be competing for a Big 12 title, expects to be in like a New Year's Six bowl game and just be a really competitive roster. I don't think it was an absolute like failure year for him by any means because, like I said, the roster turnover was insane. A lot of new guys in there, brand new coaching staff. It's going to take him a little bit to instill his system and kind of figure out what works best for him as a head coach. But also on the other side of things, being the fact that it is Oklahoma, they're used to winning. They've had some really, really good coaches in recent history like Bob Stoops. He also is not going to have like the longest runway to get this team going and headed in the right direction. So I'm really, really interested to see, what is he able to do this year. And we talked about the can to place because the defensive-minded coach, that's what kind of got him this job in the first place.
Yeah, no, definitely needs to help shore up that defense because that's what they've always been struggled with. But I will say this, Garth. I did like what I saw from Dylan Gabriel last year, quarterback at 31 total touchdowns, was accurate, took care of the football. Obviously, the team wasn't great. They did almost beat FSU in their bowl game, but, kind of a 500 season for them. Venables has to, basically pick up the pieces of Lincoln Riley, basically taking 90% of the team's staff and whatnot and multiple transfer players. I do like what he's doing. Now, for my pick, Garth, we'll see if this is what you were talking about. I'm going for a team in Texas here, but it is not the team that was in the national championship game. I'm actually looking at the Texas Longhorns.
Exactly who my pick was, Noah, actually.
Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning battling it out for the quarterback position, Garth. Two former five-star guys, two number one prospects pretty much, not just quarterback ranked, like number one in their classes, dueling it out. Now, we saw a bit of Quinn Ewers last year, and he showed signs of really good potential, but he also was very inconsistent, a little bit too many inaccurate passes for my liking, a couple turnovers here and there. I like what he's doing, but with Arch Manning coming in, obviously, major competition over his shoulder. They still have good talent at receiver. I like Xavier Worthy. They got in A.D. Mitchell, transfer from the Georgia Bulldogs, of course. But they are losing Bijan Robinson. So we'll see if, guys like Jonathan Brooks and Jaden Blue can step up and take that offense in the right direction. But, I'm glad that was the one you were thinking about, Garth, because, I thought about doing TCU, no Max Duggan and whatnot. Can they recover from, that thrashing in the championship game? But, two five-star guys battling out for a position guard that's Texas and whatnot, major school like that. It's just, I think it's just too interesting to not focus on.
For what it's worth, too, Noah, Quinn Ewers looked absolutely phenomenal in their spring game.
Yeah, he did. So we'll see who wins that job. I really don't. I think, the expectation was, Arch will just go in and just instantly, easily take the job and whatnot. But, a year of experience for Ewers. Like you said, he was good in the spring game. I don't know, man. I'm interested to see how that works out. Now, moving on to the Pac-12, I guess I'll do this one. This one's a little tough, but I'm probably going to go with Oregon on this one. I want to see if Bo Nix can have a repeat of the season he had last year. Obviously, we've talked about Bo Nix a lot in the past. Not the biggest fan of him in the past, but I will say great season last year. He's a senior this year, so, this is basically it. Now, I saw a quote from him today, Garth, saying he's still loving football as much as when he was a kid or something like that, so clearly he's absolutely loving it up there in Oregon. But Oregon's a weird one, Garth. They're one of those teams, they're losing a decent amount on defense. Noah Sewell, their top cornerback as well, went to the draft, Gonzalez, so, they have a lot to replace. But Oregon the past 2 years, Garth, it's kind of been one, felt like one of those teams that they're great in the regular season, but then when they play a massive game in the conference, especially Utah, Utah is just absolutely, dare I say, boat raced them the past 2 years. And, that's not what you want to see. But Dan Lanning in there, obviously a guy I know very well. I think he'll get them in the right direction. But, with a team like USC coming out of nowhere, Washington's always pretty decent. I don't think and obviously Utah, I don't think, they're just going to have an easy time of it. I hope, they keep improving. Luckily, they don't play Georgia the first game of the year again, so, they won't have to get steamrolled by 50 points to start the year, hopefully. But, it's just see what Oregon does. What are you thinking about the Pac-12 here?
Yeah, so really, really interesting conference. A lot of good choices here. Obviously, Oregon was on my list. Real quick, guys, before I do give my thoughts, I'm going to run a quick crowd play ad here. Run to the restroom real quick. Be right back. Got a lot to say on this subject, Noah. All right, so back after a quick break there. So yeah, there's a lot of good choices here. Noah, obviously Oregon was on my list, the one that you just mentioned. Utah as well. Cam Rising electing to return after a unfortunate ACL injury, but that team is also losing a lot to the draft. Guys like Kincaid, who's pretty much a consensus top 3 tight end in this year's draft. I think really the team that jumps out to me the most, that I'm most interested in seeing, like, hey, what is this team going to do this year? How's their roster going to look? What kind of football team in general are they going to be? Is the USC Trojans. Caleb Williams, electing to return when he could have went to the draft. Absolutely phenomenal monster year. Obviously, we all know what he did there. Really, really interested to see, can this team have a repeat of last year's success? But most importantly, win the Pac-12, make a college football playoff appearance, because they came up short against Utah. And, if they had just won that game, they would have been in. And, whether they got boat raced, made it a really good game, I would have liked to see them in the college football playoff, because I can remember as a very young football fan in general, those teams with guys like Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush, Pete Carroll, obviously there as head coach, being kind of like one of the forefront programs of college football. So, maybe a little bit of sentimental value, but I really would like to see them kind of improve and make it to the college football playoff. Win or lose, I don't really care, but at least, be in kind of that spotlight, Noah, and get over the hump that they had last year where they got right there, oh so close, and just came up short. And, other than maybe Bo Nix and Dan Lanning in Oregon, I really think that that's probably the most likely team to win the conference, because, like I said, Utah, Kyle Whittingham, been there forever, great, phenomenal coaching staff, experience. Cam Rising returns. They lose a lot to the draft. I expect them maybe not to take a step back, but not my favorites to win the conference. So USC all the way for this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. And look, USC was very ahead of schedule last year, but it is still a little disappointing that they had a chance to get in the CFP, which no one would have expected. And then they just got absolutely steamrolled in the second half against Utah in the Pac-12 championship game. And then they lost the bowl game to our boys at Tulane in an absolute wild shootout game. But they are a team that definitely has a lot of talent. Lincoln Riley is a good coach. It's just they need to play better defense. And, I mean, this is the thing with all these Lincoln Riley teams. They just cannot defend anything pretty much. So if they just had an average defense, Garth, with the offense they have, Caleb Williams, obviously we all know what he can do. Absolutely phenomenal quarterback. Won the Heisman. So, we all know what he can do. We'll see what happens with USC. Moving on to our favorite conference, Garth, the SEC. Now, there is a lot to discuss in this conference. Start with you on this one. What are you focusing on?
Oh man, this is such a tough one.
Yeah,
make a decision. So many good choices, Noah. You could do the Georgia Bulldogs for the sake of, can they continue this run of success that they're on? Make a third straight national title game would be absolutely ridiculous. Obviously I could be biased and a little bit of a homer and pick my Florida Gators to see, can they improve? Do they kind of stay stuck where they're at? Does Napier take the next step in year 2? I could go Texas A&M with, what that whole situation out there being completely lackluster, ready to fire Fisher. The kind of the boosters and the fan base is up in arms. I go with the South Carolina Gamecocks, looking to kind of build off of that late season momentum they had last year, where they went on an absolute tear and kind of took the college football world by storm. I could go with Alabama and Nick Saban. Is he going to return to college football playoffs, challenge for an SEC title? So many good choices. I think ultimately, ever so slightly, I'm actually going to lean towards a fan base and a coaching staff that I like to troll in my free time. That is the LSU Tigers over there in the SEC West. And the reason being, they have a guy who had a very, very good season who, should in all theory be even improved this year as a quarterback and a leader of that offense. Jaden Daniels returning, obviously going to be QB1 for that football team, leading that offense. Brian Kelly in year 2, so he'll be, more adjusted to the SEC schedule. kind of what these teams are looking to throw at him from a scheme standpoint. Still battling with Nick Saban for that SEC West title, as well as trying to fend off, guys like Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, who have been good for the past few seasons. Jimbo looking to bounce back and finally have a good year again there at A&M with all that talent that he's acquired. Really, really interested to see not only what Jaden Daniels does, because I think he's going to have a very, very good season there. But also Brian Kelly in year 2, because, he did make the SEC championship. Your Georgia Bulldogs kind of beat him handedly, so he came up short. But I think a lot of people forget, this LSU team did have some bad moments last year where they struggled. They got blown out by Tennessee at home, but they had some very, very highs. It's kind of a balanced season of big-time highs, but also some lows thrown in there as well. Can he kind of take that team the next step forward and have more of just a year of, kind of smooth sailing, win some games, get there in the SEC championship game, maybe put up a little bit better of a fight than they did last year? And obviously, too, Jaden Daniels, I still would pick Georgia no matter what in that game. No, I fully expect them to win that. But Jaden Daniels being banged up did not help at all. So it'll be interesting to see, can they take the next step forward this season, win the West again, but more importantly, actually put up more of a fight in the SEC championship game. And, the big thing with Brian Kelly is he had really, really good seasons at Notre Dame. It's just the fact that he always came up short in the games that mattered most, like college football playoffs. So, he's shown that he can get there. It's just the fact of, can he win once he gets there? So I'm really interested to see if he can do the same thing with LSU and get them there to the CFP.
Well, obviously LSU's an interesting one, made the championship game last year, like you said. But it is interesting to focus on them, right? Because no one expected LSU to do that. They kind of came out of nowhere. And then once you do it once, now you have expectation. Is Brian Kelly, will he be able to deal with that expectation? Because now people know LSU is a good team. You have to take them seriously. But the storyline I'm actually focusing on, Garth, is in the same division. It's the team that, in my opinion, I would be most wary of in the West, but it's not LSU. I'm looking at Alabama here. Bryce Young, Will Anderson, guys like Brian Branch leaving for the draft. Those are key players, but I mean, they just recruit so well, man. Guys to keep an eye on: the quarterback competition, Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson. I'm interested to see who wins that job there. Receivers looking solid. Jace McClellan's still there, but Gibbs is leaving. And then defensively, guys to keep an eye on: they still have Dallas Turner, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and a guy I'm really focusing on, Garth, free safety prospect, freshman Caleb Downs from Mill Creek High School, my alma mater. Really excited to see what that boy can do. I really hate that I have to root for him on an Alabama team, but I mean, if you go to my high school and you're a 5-star prospect, come on now. But it's going to be interesting because, they are losing a bit, but this is the thing in Alabama, right? I mean, they just recruit so excellently that they just replace all their guys, no problem. But they will have some good competition. I think LSU is a very good team. I think this could probably be the first year where we, see a really good fight for the West because, LSU, they had a bit of margin last year. I think they lost their last couple of games and still won the West. But before that, Alabama was obviously running. It'd be really interesting to see, a really tight fight between these two teams for the West. And you add in teams like Arkansas, solid, Mississippi State. A&M has the rebound after that absolute disaster class last season. That was just so embarrassing. Obviously, Ole Miss as well. So we'll see what happens there. But moving on to our next segment, Garth, this is just one we're going to kind of steamroll through real quick. So College Football News, which is one of the top websites that I use to obviously keep up with college football news, so surprise, surprise, has released a couple of very early lists that I kind of want to take a look at, Garth, to kind of, get some thoughts on what they've released. So they've done win totals predictions, college football schedule rankings, and bowl projections. Keep in mind, transfer portal is still wide open. Guys can still transfer. We're only at spring practice, but you know what? I was like, we might as well talk about it. It's something interesting to talk about since we're so far away from the season. So we'll start with win totals. Garth, is there any team that you want me to kind of look at and see what these guys are projecting them to win next year?
Yeah. So we just talked about, Noah, that kind of jumped to mind as other potential kind of storylines, places to follow. One being Kentucky. Will Levis, obviously gone. He's been the guy there for the past 2 seasons, played really, really well, large part of why they were so competitive. And then over in the West, the other team that we mentioned quickly but didn't really discuss in depth, the Arkansas Razorbacks, because KJ Jefferson's returning. A lot of that roster is returning. Pittman's been there for a few years now. They've really, really kind of established the brand of football that they want to play, and they've built up some experience there on the depth chart as well.
Yeah, I got you. So Kentucky, they have at 6.5, which, they are losing a bit, and they weren't as good last year, so I can kind of get that. Arkansas is at 7.5. So SEC top teams, obviously Georgia's at the top, 11.5. Alabama, 10.5. Tennessee and LSU are both at 9.5. And then South Carolina is also 7.5 with Arkansas. Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Florida at 7, which is interesting. Mississippi State, 6.5. Missouri and Auburn, 6, and then obviously poor Vanderbilt at 4.5 at the very bottom. So interesting ones there. We'll just go through the other conferences real quick. Top teams in the Sun Belt, they have South Alabama and Troy winning 7.5. Coastal Carolina with 7. Pac-12, top teams here. Oregon and USC, who we both just mentioned, are the tops at 9.5. Then Washington with 9. Utah, 8.5. UCLA, 8. Oregon State, 7.5. Washington State, 7. Arizona State, Cal, 5.5. Colorado, 4.5. Very interesting there with Deion Sanders. Pretty low, I think. I think they could maybe scrape 6 wins. And then Stanford is at 3. Mountain West, top team there is Boise State at 8.5. Fresno State right behind them at 8. Air Force and San Diego State have 7.5. The MAC, Toledo at 7. A lot of teams around 6 there pretty much because it's kind of one of those middling conferences. Independent, obviously the main one, Notre Dame, is at 8.5, which is, I think, pretty fair. Conference USA, Liberty at 8.5. Western Kentucky at 8. Let's see, Big 12. Now this is, oh my God, Garth, this is interesting here. The top team they have is a team from Texas, but not TCU. Texas at 8.5. Oklahoma State, and TCU all at 8. Kansas State, Texas Tech at 7.5. Baylor, BYU, Cincy, UCF all at 6.5. And then Houston, Iowa State, Kansas at 6, West Virginia at 5.5. Big 10, Ohio State is top, 10.5. Then they have Michigan and Penn State both at 9.5, which is interesting. I think that Penn State up there. Wisconsin at 8. Iowa, Minnesota, 7.5. Illinois, 7. Maryland, Michigan State at 6.5. Nebraska, Purdue at 6.5. At 6. Rutgers, 4.5. And Indiana, Northwestern, 4. The American, they have Tulane at top at 9.5. Then behind them, Memphis and UTSA both have 8.5. And then the ACC. This is interesting. Clemson and Florida State are tied at the top with 9. NC State at 8.5. Pitt and Wake Forest, 7.5. Miami, UNC at 7. Louisville, 6.5. Duke, 6. Boston College, Syracuse, 5.5. Georgia Tech, 5. And Virginia Tech, 4.5. Any of those that I listed out kind of stick out to you there, Garth?
Definitely Tennessee. I think that they're riding a little bit high on kind of the momentum, the hype train from last season. I just think that, Hendon Hooker obviously was absolutely phenomenal there. And I think a lot of people, because of the injury, are just kind of underappreciating, if you will, how good he was there. The stats, both passing and rushing, how well he took care of the football, really, really good at limiting the turnovers, making mistakes. And also they lose guys like Jalen Hylett to the draft. Obviously, that defense was not good at all. The fact that the offense was just so good, it kind of completely overshadowed the fact that defense was not good at all. And then, when you look at the replacement at quarterback position, you've either got a guy in Joe Milton who really has not played a whole lot, or you've got the 5-star true freshman in Nico Lamalavia. So, it's just like, I don't see how. I think you said they had him at like 10 wins or something, right around 10 and a half, something like that. You said, I don't see how they have them that high. And then the other one is Duke at 6. I feel like that's a little bit low coming off a very, very good season there. And not one that really took me by surprise, but one I want to give a little bit of a shout out to. Tulane at the top there. Me and you both very, very big fans of the Green Tide there in Tulane. Obviously, your uncle went there for graduate school, I believe he said. So that's really, really cool. Hope they can have another phenomenal season there.
Yeah, I'm with you. Moving on to the next thing we're going to look at, which is, hang on, let me get rid of this real quick. College football schedule rankings. Now, this one's always interesting. I was thinking we mainly focus on the Power 5. So we'll start with the SEC in this one, Garth. This is listed hardest to easiest, but I'm going to go opposite, easiest to hardest. So in the SEC, the easiest schedule they believe goes to Arkansas. I'm looking at their schedule here. They're at LSU. They have A&M in Arlington, at Ole Miss, obviously conference games, but they don't really have anything out of conference. And then next is UGA, which, obviously, not a very hard schedule. Texas A&M at 12. Looking any out of conference games here, they have at Miami, which is an interesting one. Tennessee has UTSA. Everything else in conference, don't see anything there. Kentucky. Anything interesting here? Not really, other than Louisville, obviously, who they play every year. Auburn has at Cal. Don't really see anything else there that stands out. Who is this? Number 8 is Mississippi State. Not really seeing much there, honestly, that sticks out, other than conference games, obviously. South Carolina, they play Clemson and UNC this year. They open against UNC in Charlotte, so that's an interesting game there. 6, they have LSU, who plays Florida State to open the year in Orlando. That is a very interesting one.
I have to go to that game, actually. Did not realize that.
Yeah, that sounds like a sick matchup. They obviously played them last year, so they must have signed some kind of deal. Ole Miss, September 9th, they're at Tulane, which could be an interesting one. Other than that, they don't really have anything. Vanderbilt, they're at Wake Forest, and that's it pretty much other than conference. 3rd has Missouri because, let's see, they play Middle Tennessee, which is an interesting one. They play Kansas State, Memphis, so a couple of interesting ones there. Number 2, they have Florida, which obviously you know the schedule, but at Utah is a tough one. Florida State, obviously, and then their conference schedule is brutal. And then the toughest schedule in the SEC, Guard, they actually have going to Alabama. Middle Tennessee, Texas. Who else do they have? Obviously, conference schedule's loaded, but I guess they're mainly doing for Texas there pretty much. So interesting there. Any other conferences we kind of want to highlight, Garth, before we move on here?
No, not really, honestly.
Gotcha. Right. What's up, Ray? No hockey talk. This is more of our college football show, Garth. Ray, if you want to, obviously, you know where to get your hockey talk. So we talked about some a little earlier, but yeah, we mainly focus on.
We did get sidetracked.
Ray says Eastern Conference. Yeah, it's shaping up to be interesting. So see what happens there.
Your Devils, man.
Yeah, Ray is. It's not looking too great. Maybe they can come back. You know, it's obviously series is far from over, but to lose the first 2 games at home, pretty rough. Now, the last one, Garth, this is a little interesting. We can definitely go more in-depth on this one. Bowl projections. Now, they have literally done every bowl game. So the Cure Bowl, they have Army versus James Madison as their projection. But we're not going to focus on all the bowl games because obviously there's like 50 of them. We'll mainly focus on the key ones, you know, the college football playoff games, New Year's Six, whatever you want to call them. I got to scroll. These names, man, like I know we talk about it all the time, but like the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl, like what is that? How is that a bowl game? The Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, Gator Bowl. They have Clemson versus Ole Miss. That's an interesting one. Let's see here. All right, we're getting down to the good ones here. Citrus Bowl. They have Wisconsin versus Tennessee. That'd be an interesting one.
That'd be cool to see.
ReliaQuest Bowl, Florida versus Minnesota. That'd be a good challenge for you guys. Those are really the only 2 I see outside the New Year's Six that are interesting. Now, for the New Year's Six, Peach Bowl. Oh, my God, this would be a sick game. LSU versus Michigan.
Yeah,
that would be nuts. Capital One Orange Bowl, Florida State versus Penn State. Interesting one. Fiesta Bowl, Notre Dame versus Washington. Pretty good one. Cotton Bowl, they have Boise State versus Oregon. That'd be a nice one.
That's interesting. That'd be kind of a cool West Coast battle.
Oh, my God. Now, playoff predictions go at the Rose Bowl. They have Alabama versus Ohio State. That would be nuts. I think that would be a sick game. Holy crap. This is insane. All-State Sugar Bowl. Georgia versus Texas. I don't know about that, man. I don't
know. I think that they've got Texas a little bit ahead of schedule, in my opinion. But that would be a cool matchup if that is actually how it panned out.
And then national championship game, Georgia versus Ohio State. I mean, that makes sense. Like we've always said, basically the championship game from this year was that game. So interesting projection there. Obviously, like I said, we just kind of skipped through that just to see what the pulse is very early on. There's still a lot that can change.
Very high on Ohio State now, which is interesting to me because, they've got a totally unproven situation at quarterback, obviously, losing some big-time receivers as well to the NFL draft. And quite frankly, Michigan's returning a lot. Their biggest rival, biggest competition in that conference.
Next topic, Garth. This one will be short and sweet. The NFL draft is next Thursday. Who would you like your team to take? You could just say a position you wanted to focus on, specific player, what have you. Who do you want your Chargers to be looking at?
So I would say, frankly, Noah, that the biggest needs for us is depth at wide receiver. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are one of the best duos in the entire NFL, but the issue is neither one of them, more so Mike Williams of the two, is able to stay healthy. Tight end, we've got a lot of kind of decent role players, depth position guys, but we don't have that true number one, really good, reliable tight end. And then the other big position I need would be a true kind of run-stuffing middle linebacker. So I guess I'll just list off a few of my wish lists. Middle linebacker, Jack Campbell of Iowa, absolute stud. We're both very, very high on him.
Yeah.
Tight end, either Mayer or Kincaid. And then wide receiver, there's honestly a whole boatload of guys. But if we could get more of like a speedy route runner out of this group of wide receivers, that's kind of more so what we need. We have the kind of sure-handed possession wide receiver in Keenan Allen. And we have kind of the jump ball, do-it-all in Mike Williams. We need a guy with a lot of speed that can stretch the field, and Justin Herbert can kind of just let the ball rip over the top.
Interesting choices. For my Falcons, I got three guys I'm mainly focusing on, either a defensive end or a cornerback. Defensive end, I'm going with Miles Murphy out of Clemson. I mean, pretty obvious choice. The other guys that are ahead of him on the position rankings will be long gone by the time we pick. And then past that, you get to B.J. Ojolari, but I'm not as big a fan of him out of LSU. I really do like Murphy, though. Cornerback-wise, I think as the other position they could do because they just released our guy Casey Hayward today from the team. So I think they could look to get a number two beside A.J. Terrell. And two guys I'm looking at there, Christian Gonzalez, who I mentioned earlier in the show, 6'1", out of Oregon, but he also ran a 4.38 40. He's, pretty fast, athletic. Really like what he's doing. And another guy, Garth, that might be a bit under the radar because of the team that he played for. Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois. In my opinion, probably my favorite cornerback in this class. I think he's a really underrated guy, a very savvy player, very fast, decent size. I just think he's really solid fundamentally as well. So interested to see what they do. But yeah, NFL draft next Thursday. Obviously, we're not going to have a show next Thursday because the draft. I probably won't have one next Friday as well because we've got to wait for more news to pop in. But now, saved it for last. So, in case you guys are not aware, Garth and I do the picks challenge the past 2 years. I unfortunately have lost both years. Because I get behind early and then I make picks against my better judgment to attempt to catch up, and it ends up screwing me in the end. So I have lost for the second straight time, which means I have to do a forfeit. And this one, Garth, I don't remember exactly what you told me to do because you told me like 3 months ago, but it was basically talk about how great Florida athletics is and something like that pretty much. And it, not just football, but all their sports. So I've actually written a letter, Garth. I got it up here on my phone in a Google Doc. It's about 2 pages long, pretty much. So this is going to get clipped off and sent to all your Gators buddies, I'm sure. But anyway, Gator Nation. This is called A Letter to Gator Nation by Noah Dawg Deibler. Gator Nation. This is your sweet tea co-host, Noah Dawg Deibler, with a special address announcement. You probably know me as a diehard fan of the now two-time defending champion Georgia Bulldogs. However, I am also now known as the man who has now lost the Sweet Tea Picks competition 2 years in a row. As a result, I was assigned a punishment by my co-host and good buddy, Garth Charger Patrick, to talk about how great Florida athletics are and why I respect them so much. Please consider the following contents of this letter mere statements of fact and appreciation of accomplishments which cannot be denied and should be respected by fans of sports like us. I am not and never will be a fan of the Florida Gators, nor will I ever stop mercilessly trolling them after this letter is finished. In the history of intercollegiate competition, the Florida Gators have won a total of 45 national championships, 40 of which are sponsored by the NCAA. 23 of these were won by men's teams, while 22 were won by women's teams. Accomplishments for the men obviously include 3 college football national championships coming in the 1996, 2006, and 2008 seasons. The first came at the 1997 Sugar Bowl, where on January 2nd, 1997, the Gators boat raced their hated rivals, the Florida State Seminoles, 52-20. After an FSU field goal made the score 24-20 just barely in the second half, Florida went on a dominant 28-0 run to close out the game, in what is to date the only national championship game to feature 2 teams from the same state. Head coach Urban Meyer would then lead Florida to 2 more national titles in the 2007 and 2009 BCS National Championship games, winning 41-14 over Ohio State and 24-14 over Oklahoma, respectively. The Gators currently have a winning record against every current FBS Division I conference, including a 352, 262, and 15 record against the SEC. Their 628 overall winning percentage is good for 17th all-time, 3 titles ranks 20th, and they have produced 3 Heisman winners. Garth, can you name those real quick for us? I'm sure you can.
Steve Spurrier, Tim Tebow, and why is the third escaping me right now?
90s.
Werfel.
Yep, Danny Werfel.
Okay. I thought him at first, and for some reason my mind made me doubt it.
Oh my God! Free. Who just did you just do this, Garth? Free Shoes University from the Sports Box. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but yes, 3 Heisman winners: Spurrier, Werfel, and Tebow. Good for 6th all time. They have produced the 9th most NFL draft picks at 367, the 6th most first-round draft picks at 57, and have spent 41 weeks as an AP number 1. Good for 10th all time. Without question, Florida is one of the most legendary programs in the history of the sport, despite having a 44-54-2 record against the University of Georgia. Mikey Bradley coming in with a comment saying, "I'm ready for this." Fuck you, Mikey. All right. However, and this is, I think, why Garth wanted me to do this, unlike many college sports teams, Florida's success is greater than just football. They also won the 2017 national title in college baseball. Current MLB players from the University of Florida include Mets first baseman Pete Alonso, Yankees center fielder Harrison Bader, Cleveland catcher Mike Zunino, and Padres outfielder Preston Tucker. Former players such as pitcher Darren O'Day, catcher David Ross, and perhaps most notably 2006 World Series MVP David Eckstein also played for the Gators. Back-to-back college basketball titles in 2006 and 2007 were spearheaded by future NBA veterans Al Horford and Joakim Noah. In addition, Torian Green, Corey Brewer, and Chris Richard were all drafted to and ultimately played at least some time in the NBA, with Brewer having the most lengthy career of the 3. Florida has also won 4 golf national titles with 4 golfers, Doug Sanders, Mark Calcavecchia, Andy Bean, and Frank Beard amassing more than 10 PGA wins in their careers, with Sanders notching 20. Bob Murphy won 21 tournaments as a professional, including 11 wins on the Champions Tour, formerly known as the Senior PGA Tour, in addition to 5 PGA Tour wins. Florida has also won 10 titles for track and field, 5 for inside track and field, and 5 for outside track and field. All of these titles have come since 2010, including an outside track and field title in 2022. In 1983 and 1984, Florida won the swimming and diving titles, also adding on a tennis title in 21. Florida is one of only 2 Division I schools to hold both major men's championships, football and men's basketball, at the same time. The 2006 BCS football champions and the 06 and 07 NCAA men's basketball champions, and they were the first school to do so. The women also had on 2 golf titles, 4 gymnastic titles, including 3 straight from 2013 to 2015, 3 track and field titles, 2 indoor, 1 outdoor, including winning both titles in 2022, a soccer title in 1998, back-to-back softball champions in 2014 and 15, 3 swimming and diving titles, and a remarkable 7 tennis titles, all of which have come since 1992. No doubt, Florida has multiple elite programs and doesn't just rely on football or basketball to compete. This is not even including hundreds of individual championships and conference championships. I've also heard, Garth, their pottery and basket weaving teams are remarkable, in addition to being a great university academically. Let's see. We've got more comments coming in. Andrew Echevarria coming in saying, Noah is low-key a Gator fan. He's not even reading. He knows this from memory. Andrew, thanks for the comment. But, yeah, we're going to move right past that. His gramps love them, so he doesn't hate them. He's got a little Gator in him. I hate you guys so much. Mikey says, this is epic. Only when Garth is behind him. Oh, my God. Shut the fuck up, Mikey, you horny bastard. He's drinking a Gatorade in between him winning it, too. That's what the G on his hat stands for. All right. We got 2 more paragraphs. Here we go. And they're getting ahead of me because my next paragraph is about that stuff. One could even say that being a Florida Gator runs in my blood. My paternal grandfather was a diehard Florida Gators fan. Luckily for him, he lived long enough to see them win all 3 of their football titles. For this reason and several others, I have never said I truly hate the Florida Gators, which Garth can attest to, by the way. Compared to teams I absolutely despise and wish would cease to exist, such as the Tennessee Volunteers and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, I have a very begrudging respect for the Gators. They are the most important game on the schedule for me because the game just means more. Beating your opponent in the world's largest cocktail party means more to me than any other regular season game. Not even clean old-fashioned hate or the Deep South's oldest rivalry beats Florida-Georgia for me. Florida and Georgia are like Batman and the Joker, Tom and Jerry, Mario and Luigi, or Sonic and Tails. You cannot have one without the other. They are forever intertwined in history. This feeling of respect combined so perfectly with dislike is what makes this rivalry the best in college football, in my opinion. It's easy to hate a team, but it's much different to have a feeling of pride in beating a team you have so much respect for. Florida, Georgia just means more to me, which that is true. I hate this so much, but you know what? It is true. I gotta hold my hands up and say it. Last paragraph. The only problem with the Florida and Georgia rivalry, in my opinion, is that the teams had never been elite at the same time. When Spurrier and Urban were dominating, Georgia was mediocre. As Smart has led Georgia to back-to-back titles, Florida has had back-to-back losing seasons. The only thing, in my opinion, that could beat the rivalry of Florida and FSU in the 90s would be to see both Florida and Georgia competing for national titles at the same time. And to be honest, I don't think anything would even come close. To make it so much more meaningful to beat your rival because you know just how excellent they are would make the rivalry all the more sweeter. Garth and I hopefully still have plenty of years left in our lives to see such a day come. Until then, I will continue to troll him and the laughingstock known as the Florida Gators on a daily basis. Thanks to everyone for listening. Be sure to stay tuned into the Sweet Tea Show here on the Sports Box for all your college football podcasting needs. Until the next punishment, which hopefully will not be done by me for the 3rd straight time, this has been Noah Dawg Deibler fulfilling his forfeit. Over and out. There you go.
Excellently done, my good friend Noah.
Thank you. Thanks, buddy. Brant Meeks, who I was on with on the Sports Box Hockey Preview Show last Sunday, big Capitals fan. Good show, guys. Thank you very much, Brant, for stopping in and leaving a comment.
Thank you, sir.
But, that is going to do it for the slate tonight. Garth, do you have anything to add before we hop off here for the night?
Just a huge thank you to everybody that tuned in, blew up the comment section tonight. Obviously, the college football season is not underway, but we're both already very, very excited at this point in the year. So it was really cool to see the fans turn out, blow up the comments, give us the support that we love to see week in and week out here on the Sweet Tea Show. And last but not least, guys, really good job, Noah, tonight. He absolutely killed the punishment. I know he dreaded to do it, but he knocked it out of the park. And last but not least, me and Noah will finally be attending the world's largest cocktail party this fall. Win, lose, or draw, I cannot wait, my friend. It should be the time of our lives.
No question. Really looking forward to that in October. I'm going to especially look forward to Georgia winning by 3 touchdowns minimum. But, a great show. We are back officially. We're not going to be on next week, like I said, because of the draft. But, semi-regular shows, obviously not weekly like we try to do during the season. But we'll try and come up with stuff to talk about in the next few weeks. One last comment. Brant says, let's go Seattle. Giving the Avs all they can handle. Got to respect it. But, yes, until next time, from myself, Noah Dawg Deibler, and my co-host and good buddy, Garth Charger Patrick, this has been another episode of the Sweet Tea Show here on the Sports Box Network. We'll be back in a couple weeks probably, but until then, enjoy your sports, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching this episode of Sweet Tea on the Sports Box. Please remember to follow us on all of our social media outlets. On Facebook at Sports Box Show, Twitter at Sports Box Show, Instagram at The Sports Box Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And also our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 free points. Thank you for joining us.